Apparently there's going to be some type of protest here at the Capitol Park. It's set for 4 o'clock. It's like 3:50, so I don't know. There's like 5 different news stations out, all ready to catch the drama. I'm going to be on TV.
No,
Yes. Yeah.
You're not even going to contribute anything to the protest. No, I'm honestly
hate black
playing
people?
Pokemon.
You hate black people, don't you?
No.
You think all black people should go to hell and should be crucified?
Honestly, I just got with you as a joke because I know you're below me. I'm kidding.
She said she got with a black man as a joke because she knew it was baloney. Guys, I bet someone's gonna look at us and think we're not even a real couple. They're gonna think we're just making some type of statement.
I have a story for you about Russia, Black Lives Matter, Ferguson, and Baltimore. That is also a story about Donald Trump and Russia. What do I mean by that?
If we take the whole time, money, and manpower that the Soviet Union and KGB in particular spends outside of USSR border, we will discover, of course there are no official statistics unlike with CIA or FBI, that the espionage as such occupies only 10 to 15% of money, time, and manpower. 15% of the activity of KGB. The rest, 85%, is always subversion.
Tell us, CNN, how could this be?
Also, new reporting tonight on Russian election meddling from Facebook to Pokemon Go. Is there anything the Russians didn't have their hands on during this election? And did they target you? I want to bring in now CNN's Dylan Byers, our senior reporter for media and politics, CNN national security analyst Steve Hall, and Julia Kayyem, and CNN political commentator David Swerdlick. Good evening. Welcome to the program to all of you. Dylan, you have exclusive new reporting tonight about Russia's attempts to meddle in the U.S. election that went way beyond just Facebook and Twitter. What are you learning?
That's right, Don. Way beyond Facebook and Twitter,
beyond.
way beyond even YouTube
way
and
beyond.
Tumblr. What we've learned is that the Russians even tried to use Pokemon Go, augmented reality video game, to effectively galvanize African-American outrage over police brutality.
Якобы Россия влияла на американские выборы через аудиторию афроамериканцев, моделируя игры компьютерные с покемонами. Это же как надо унизить собственный народ, как надо относиться к афроамериканскому населению своей страны, чтобы утверждать, что свой политический выбор эти люди делают на основе компьютерных игр.
When you're hunting for Pokemon and you end up walking to a Black Lives Matter protest, so you're just like, hey. Ashley's still looking for Pokemon right now. So this is my Black Lives Matter shirt right here. So you guys were curious about my attire for the event. I really didn't know this was gonna happen. I know I brought up Black Lives Matter on my channel, but I really didn't know this was gonna happen. The funniest part to me was the people showing up late. That was...
I guess.
Nope, the march is over. You guys like, the march is moving? Nope. It's over.
Over police killings of African American men. The idea that Russians are exploiting racial tensions by Pokemon Go would be
something that only CNN would report because you have no editorial standards or common sense whatsoever.
Now, subversion is an activity which is a two-way traffic. You cannot subvert an enemy which doesn't want to be subverted.
Well, recall that I've been saying for a long time, Russia never wanted Donald Trump to defeat Hillary Clinton because they particularly like Donald Trump or because they thought Donald Trump would be a practically speaking good president or anything like that. Russia thought correctly that Donald Trump being president would create chaos, that Trump's incompetence would sort of engender criticism and skepticism of the United States as a serious player on the world stage. That's why Russia wanted Trump. And this is in the book, The Foundations of Geopolitics by Alexander Dugin. I'm probably sort of sounding like a broken record because of how often I'm mentioning that book. But if you go to that book, you will really understand why Russia would want Donald Trump to be president of the United States.
Let me read a few passages from page 367 from the Foundations of Geopolitics by Alexander Dugin. Quote, "All levels of geopolitical pressure must be activated simultaneously. It is especially important to introduce geopolitical disorder into internal American activity, encouraging all kinds of separatism and ethnic, social, and racial conflicts, actively supporting all dissident movements, extremist, racist, and sectarian groups, thus destabilizing internal political process in the United States. It would also make sense simultaneously to support isolationist tendencies in American politics." Now, on page 248, the same book, Dugin writes, quote, "It is important to provoke all forms of instability and separatism within the borders of the United States. It is possible to make use of the political forces of Afro-American racists." Close quote. Now, are you scared yet?
Dugin goes on to say Russia should introduce disorder by encouraging separatism and ethnic, social, and racial conflicts, including by supporting all dissident movements, including extremist, racist, and sectarian groups, to destabilize the internal processes of the U.S. This is what Russia was doing by supporting Trump, and this is what Russia was doing by promoting Black Lives Matter and gun rights and the Second Amendment to people in Ferguson and Baltimore when those were the locations of significant unrest.
Because there's more, as in a lot more. Page 216, on the construction of the Eurasian Empire. Quote, "At the basis of the geopolitical construction of this Eurasian Empire, there must be placed one fundamental principle, the principle of a common enemy. A negation of Atlanticism, a repudiation of the strategic control of the United States, and the rejection of the supremacy of economic liberal market values. This represents the common civilizational basis, the common impulse which will prepare the way for a strong political and strategic union." Close quote. So basically, the Eurasian Empire is basically the union of America haters. Now that sounds lovely.
The USA, NATO, liberal capitalism, Anglo-Zionism, the New World Order, neoconservatism, whatever you call it, it's the same thing. It's a total war against Russia. But it's not only a war against Russia, it's also a war against Christendom as a whole. And the western half of Christendom has almost lost that war. Western Europe is almost finished. We have, as we've heard, the flaunting of perversion, the destruction, the complete destruction of national sovereignty, the systematic denigration of Christianity, mass abortion, privatization, the looting of all our common wealth, with a concentration of that wealth in the hands of 1% of the population. And most of all, mass immigration on a scale which, as we've already heard, has guaranteed demographic disaster in Western Europe in the next 25 years at most. Constantinople has been and gone. And Rome, and the Protestants who came from Rome, will go the same way. It's now absolutely inevitable that in the lifetimes of most of the people in this room, Western Europe will either become an Islamist caliphate or there will be a terrible civil war, or perhaps both. It's unavoidable, which makes the survival of Christendom absolutely only possible through the rise and the survival of the Third Rome, of Moscow and of Russia.
Subversion can be only successful when the initiator, the actor, the agent of subversion has a responsive target. It's a two-way traffic. United States is a receptive target of subversion.
Well, we've now learned that not only did Russians buy Facebook ads targeting the United States during the 2016 election, they bought at least some ads which referenced and promoted Black Lives Matter, specifically geo-targeted for audiences in Ferguson, Missouri, and Baltimore, Maryland. Now, why would Russia want to target people in those communities with Black Lives Matter messaging? Well, you'll remember that both Ferguson and Baltimore were the locations of significant racial unrest and violent protests over police shooting of black men. And Facebook previously said that about a quarter of the 3,000 ads bought by this agency in Russia were geo-targeted, but we didn't know what those locations were. Now we actually know. A couple of those locations were Ferguson, Missouri, and Baltimore, Maryland. And the posts promoted Black Lives Matter. Some of them promoted gun rights. Some of them promoted the Second Amendment. And what is absolutely fascinating with this is that there are actually people that don't know how easy this is with Facebook.
Okay, let me tell you what's going on here. Allegedly, some Russian political operatives were encouraging people to play Pokemon Go and name the Pokemons after figures in the Black Lives Matter movement and also alleged supposed victims of police brutality. In other words, they were helping promote Black Lives Matter. Or in other words, they were helping promote Democrat causes. Or in other words, they were helping Hillary Clinton's campaign. It's also been recently discovered, or alleged rather, that these same Russian political operatives were running a popular Black Lives Matter Facebook page called Blacktivist, which actually had more followers than the official verified Facebook page of Black Lives Matter. The Blacktivist Facebook page wasn't just promoting Black Lives Matter online, they were actually organizing Black Lives Matter events. So the Russians are actually largely behind Black Lives Matter.
This is really easy with Facebook. I've been dabbling in some Facebook ads to promote show content, and I've been trying different test groups to test for levels of engagement. Liberals versus conservatives. Maybe if we market our videos to conservative Facebook users, they would get really angry at them and share them at some higher rate than liberals. Turned out wasn't true. I tried targeting liberals in cities versus liberals in non-cities, because maybe urban liberals are more likely to share the clips, for example, or maybe urban liberals know more people than rural liberals, so more people would see it when they share our clips, right? The point is, you can test almost anything you want with Facebook ads. So then the question becomes, why would Russia target a Black Lives Matter ad at Ferguson and at Baltimore? Is it because they support the political ideas of Black Lives Matter? Maybe they do, maybe they don't. But this is part of the same strategy that got them supporting Donald Trump in the election. This is straight out of Alexander Dugin's Foundations of Geopolitics. According to Dugin in his book about how to handle geopolitics to Russia's advantage in the United States, Dugin says Russia should work within the U.S. to fuel instability, to fuel separatism, such as by promoting African-American racists.
Russian political operatives use Pokemon Go, the popular augmented reality video game loved by millions of millennials, to hand the election to Donald Trump.
You're gonna be, are you here for the protest? You're gonna be like, no, I'm here for Pokemon. Holy fuck. You guys see those black things up there? We just spotted some fucking snipers. No, I legitimately think those are actual snipers up there.
Just in case anything goes down.
What the fuck is gonna go down? Why do they have snipers on a Capitol?
This isn't like...
This is the protest right now. They have 2 cops over there on horses, by the way, and 2 cops over there on horses. It's running away, Ashley. It's running away. Catch it.
Larry, you're in my face.
You gotta run.
You don't have to run.
You gotta run or else you won't get it. Ashley, you're really missing out. You have to hit it. Ooh. Guys, I'm really sorry about that noise. I don't know what the fuck that bullshit was. We just witnessed Ashley catch a Pokemon. How you feel, honey? See that look of excitement? That's the type of look you can only give her by getting her food or eating her out.
Ew.
Catching a Pokemon.
Now, some will hear me say this and they'll say, David, you are being racist and offensive to suggest that people in Baltimore and Ferguson are just too stupid to realize that they've been tricked or influenced by covert Russian ads. You're missing the point. This isn't about black or Hispanic or white or young or old people being more or less susceptible to Russian influence campaigns. The point is, everyone is susceptible to it, and Russia ran campaigns on Facebook in Ferguson and Baltimore that ranged all the way up to impacting national news stories and seeding chaos. And I know that there are people who will hear this story and they'll say, oh, you know what? By suggesting Russia could do this, you're taking for granted that the targets of these ads are stupid. It is not about that. It is about seeding chaos in any way possible. And this is exactly what Russia has been doing. Alexander Dugin prescribed it in his book, Foundations of Geopolitics. down to the details, right? I mean, it is literally what he suggested, and it confirms it was never about Trump specifically for Russia. It never was. Trump was a tool that Russia was able to use to seed chaos, and it has worked incredibly well.